Friends, franchisee growth today is not just about expansion, but about understanding the real picture at the outlet level, from operation to customer experience. This session will help uncover those hidden insights that often go unnoticed but directly impact businesses' success. We are delighted to have with us Mr. Kunal Kisle, co-founder and CEO of MyBlue.ai, an IIT Bombay alumni and AI entrepreneur. He is pioneering innovative solutions that transform video data into actionable intelligence, enabling businesses to gain real-time value visibility and make smarter decisions at scale. I am confident that today's session will be highly insightful and valuable for all of you. With that, I invite Mr. Kunal to take the session forward. Welcome, Mr. Kunal.
Thanks, Akshat. Thanks a lot for those kind words.
Now the stage is handed to you, and I am very much sure that this session is very helpful for our today's participant as well as our future participant, because we upload this session on our website for their knowledge. They can access anytime. Over to you, sir.
Thanks a lot, Akshat, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kunal Kisle. I am one of the co-founders of Blue, and in a short while, I'll potentially try and outline what Blue is all about. I've let me just quickly share my screen. Uh, just to give a bit of kind of introduction about my experience. I've basically kind of been working on in the field of AI for over a decade. I had started an organization, Integration Wizards, in 2014. Probably one of the first organizations in India to start working on kind of the effort of understanding videos. We, kind of, and, kind of, we were acquired in, 2022 by an American enterprise AI company. And, kind of, since then, I've potentially joined hands with my classmates and my ex-colleagues to, kind of create Blue. One of the kind of over the last, kind of 12 years or so, one of the unique, kind of advantages I've potentially had was my ability to, kind of have, kind of experience of deploying solutions to several, kind of franchisee locations. I was just before the webinar, I was kind of doing a rough maths around kind of total number of franchisee outlets that we have ever in the past contracted and worked with, and the number of those locations is about 15,000. Kind of that ranges from kind of quick service restaurants to petrol pumps, gas stations, to kind of jewelry retail, to kind of several others. And as kind of several of you might kind of who've had the experience of either owning a franchisee or kind of having franchisee partners with you, it is not a straightforward business. It is quite tricky, and kind of there are. I mean, you essentially, kind of having a franchisee partner essentially means, kind of kind of making sure that the same level of kind of experience that your customers have, that you basically intend them to have, is basically kind of made available across kind of across all the franchisee locations as well. I've had several experiences, kind of where I mean, this does not hold true. and kind of you basically kind of find different sort of experiences coming from different locations, something that the brand or the franchisee owner do not really want. And kind of if you notice kind of there are several attempts that are actually taken to kind of try and bridge this gap. And you have scenarios like kind of audits that happen unannounced. There are kind of other measures that are put in place in terms of compliance and SOPs. But one thing that I've realized across kind of across my last decade worth of experience is ground truth, reality from the site, right? So if you have the ground truth, exactly what's happening at the site, that is when you are going to be able to kind of uh, ensure kind of the right sort of kind of performance metrics at these sites. And guess what? Kind of you already have the right or the appropriate mechanism to kind of get the ground truth at the sites. There are CCTV cameras, and all these outlets, more or less now, kind of more or less, they have CCTV cameras. What if? What if those CCTV cameras could essentially be centralized? Kind of you could potentially at the headquarters, kind of have a mechanism where you can assimilate, ingest information coming out of these CCTV cameras. And once you get that, kind of have an agent, kind of these days we talk about AI agents a lot. So an agent of that sort, kind of that basically makes sense of those videos, and then finally creates a report for you, creates the right set of information that you need to be able to understand how is that outlet doing, right? So, kind of, I'll give you an example of a jewelry retail chain without naming them, kind of a pretty, kind of a pretty well-known and renowned jewelry retail chain. Uh, they have and they've had a problem of kind of abnormally kind of low footfall in a particular geography, and kind of as compared to anywhere else in a comparable kind of population size in a city. All the analysis kind of was kind of was pointing to kind of the fact that kind of potentially the location was not right. It was not kind of the kind of the marketing has not been right. But kind of it all boiled down to the fact that the footfall was not reported correctly, right? So kind of simple things like kind of number of people who've actually walked in, the demographics of people who are actually coming to your store, how how quickly are you being kind of customers are being attended to, kind of any sort of theft or pilferage that is potentially happening at the cash counter, are the receipts being handed over, kind of if it's a quick service restaurants or restaurant, kind of are cleanliness kind of protocols followed correctly. These are all questions that kind of you need to kind of you need to be able to answer to be sure that that particular franchisee outlet is working properly. And I guess kind of that's basically what Blue does. We don't do anything else. We have a mechanism where you can kind of send your videos without burning your internet bills, because we have a unique compression technology, kind of that basically compresses your videos by 10 times, right? So so it's a flat word, kind of 10 times, right? So kind of you have 10 cameras. Typically every camera kind of produces about 2 megabits per second. 10 cameras would require you to create kind of have an internet of 20 megabits per second. We're saying just two, right? So you're going to be able to kind of send videos upstreams with 2 mbps. Once those videos come to our central location, we obviously have a mechanism of kind of viewing those videos of any site, do a playback, kind of analyze, kind of those videos at any point of time. Uh, but once they come centrally, you basically have a place where you have videos coming in from all your sites, all hundreds and thousands of your sites. So, you've got one central location where those videos are coming in. And then you've got somebody, kind of your agent, kind of which we call it Blue, an agent running for you, analyzing all these videos, kind of real time, and telling you, okay, this restaurant, I think something is wrong. Kind of, why don't you take a look at it? Here's the video that you should be looking at. And kind of, I think, there is a potential pilferage that's happening. There's a fight that's going on there. Or, kind of at the end of the day, it says, today 212 people came to your store, which is like, 20% lower than, similar days on, in previous weeks. It basically does that for you. So, kind of at the headquarters, you basically, kind of, without physically being present at the store, you actually know everything that's happening at the store. And that's what we call, kind of having access to ground reality. What kind of what that essentially translates to, kind of, if you think about, kind of, if you think about how franchisees and MSMEs, kind of potentially generate ROI out of it, kind of, in this slide, I just wanted to, kind of, bullet point some of those things. So, kind of, we are able to, kind of clearly understand and articulate the key points of advantage that are going to come out. The first one, kind of, as I have been stressing consistently, kind of, for past many years, is the fact that you first need to know, or need to, kind of know what is wrong before you can actually fix anything. And there is no better system, kind of, there is no better system to get the ground truth than cameras. Videos don't lie, right? So every other system, your point of sale system, your ERP system, and your CRM system, they're basically, kind of, fed with data that's created by people. Videos basically tell you, kind of exactly what's happening. So the first thing, kind of, before doing anything else, before, kind of, getting into any kind of AI journey with your franchisees, kind of, with your retail outlets, the idea is first just to, kind of aggregate information, have the ability to access your stores as and when you want it. Kind of, and that's the first thing that actually Blue does. I mean, it is currently, if you look at it, right? So it's almost impossible. None of the, kind of, pretty much none of the franchisees that have, kind of, or the brands that I've worked with have a mechanism of centrally aggregating it. At best, they can actually ping and see, kind of footage coming out of one camera on demand. But, if you ask somebody, do you have last 15 days storage footage of everything that has happened across all your, kind of franchises? No. And the real reason is the videos are just too large. It's just not possible to be able to, kind of, transmit them and store them. And it was, kind of an unsolvable problem so far, until we have, kind of our compression tech, which basically does 90% compression on top of what H264 does, right? So your files are smaller, your bandwidth cost goes low, and you basically now have access to your footage across all your sites, kind of, real time. So that's point number one, a huge advantage, but that's not all, right? So that's a necessary first step towards your AI journey. The second step is, kind of, essentially making sure that I mean, kind of, as owner of, kind of, a particular franchisee, or, kind of, even managers of a particular store, you're responsible for, kind of ensuring that, kind of, processes and compliances are followed up, right? So when you're, kind of, baking pizza, kind of, you should have gloves in your hand, you should have hairnet, kind of, potentially for the, kind of, for you. So all of this is, kind of, I mean, these are SOPs and, kind of, processes that you definitely have to follow. Kind of, those are, that's basically the second step, the immediate second step after you, kind of ensure that you have the right sort of visibility and you're able to, kind of save cost. Now, there's a catch here. When you talk about processes and compliance, as kind of we pretty much, kind of more or less assume the fact that these are a list of static things. These are the 5 things that you need to do, or these are the, kind of 10 different steps that need to be followed. In reality, it is not. Kind of based on changing times. Kind of currently, kind of the situation that we have with LPG, there are processes and compliances that have actually changed. We, kind of not so long ago, we have witnessed, kind of during COVID times, compliances were different, right? So, kind of all of this keeps changing. And, kind of that's where Blue actually comes handy. You can't really have a pre-coded list of, kind of processes and compliance. We make it flexible. We let you write what kind of what those compliances are, what those processes are. You write it in English. You don't really have to code it. Once you write it in English, our system essentially understands that and applies that on the videos that it's actually processing. Uh, kind of you made sure that kind of your customers are taken care of, your processes, compliances, your kind of safety, hygiene, all of that is in kind of place. The next thing is to kind of keep a tab on pilferage. Kind of we have kind of in different industries in India, the numbers actually vary from 6 to 18% of of the revenue being lost in pilferages. It's a non-trivial problem. It's a non-trivial problem, but extremely hard to solve because kind of I mean it's system against people who are intending to kind of kind of be a part of kind of this particular process, pilferage or theft, right? So I mean, and people evolve, kind of and I've seen like 100 different kind of ways this can actually be committed, even at the cash counter. What we basically done is kind of uh, create an entire more or less kind of secure ecosystem that combines information coming out of the cameras, combines information coming out of point of sale systems, and that's why we've partnered with kind of several point of sales kind of OEMs, and match them and marry them to be able to find out kind of if there is any potential of pilferage and flag the suspicious ones with a video clip of let's say 30 seconds when that transaction actually happened, right? So if you think that the amount of kind of amount of stuff that was handed over, somebody ordered for one pizza and there were 4 boxes and 3 bottles that were handed over, it looks suspicious, right? So kind of AI can actually identify that and kind of potentially flag those with a video evidence. So you've got a better tab at kind of what might potentially be going wrong, and kind of be able to resolve it going forward. Finally, kind of we have stores for customers, and kind of customer experience should not suffer, right? Because of kind of different locations or different sites. Kind of what one of the things that Blue actually does is to measure, kind of customer experience to several KPIs, right? So, kind of, and customer experience is a very subjective thing, right? So you cannot say if a customer, kind of is happy or not happy, but you can measure everything that actually influences it, right? What influences, kind of customer experience is, kind of how often are they attended, how long did they have to wait to, kind of in the cashier's queue. When they went to the cashier, was the cashier present or not present? 100 of, kind of these kind of KPIs that are, kind of that are out there that need to be, kind of addressed and understood. And that's what Blue does to you. Kind of gets you those KPIs and gets you those KPIs so you can measure. The only things that you can measure, you can, kind of improve on. right? So understand, kind of how a store is doing, how, kind of it has been doing, over a period of time. Is it getting better? Is it not getting better, and stuff like that, right? So now if you think about it, right? So, kind of you're talking about process and compliance, you're talking about, pilferage and theft, and talking about customer and operational experience. These three, kind of potential KPIs come together to, kind of give a score to a particular store. And that is the number, kind of that basically tells us if how's that store doing, how's that store doing for you, and what can we do to make that store, kind of improve, right? So it has something both for the headquarters and, kind of the store managers, right? So the store manager themselves know that, kind of these are the 10 different things that I need to focus on. These are the things that are getting better. These are the things that are not getting better, and so on, right? So that's basically, kind of what Blue is going to do for you. Kind of if you were to, embark on this journey of, kind of semantic video data lake and aggregating all your videos, making sense of it. Now, if, kind of the three steps that we talked about, kind of what actually happens, kind of let's say, kind of I'll give an example of a pretty famous, kind of pizza manufacturing, kind of joint. And I mean, what actually happens when you say that, okay, you know what, I think Blue makes sense, and, kind of, can we just do it for all our outlets? What happens then is the first thing is, kind of we go to a store, and, for every store, we basically, kind of put a small device. It's a cheap, kind of the buzzwords around GPU and, stuff like that. That's not there, right? So it's a small, kind of device that's got one job. It will connect to your cameras. It will compress the videos and will send it upstream. Just that, kind of that we'll put that device at your site. And the moment the device is put, it takes 5 minutes to, kind of essentially put that device, at the site. And the moment that device is actually installed, or put at site, you basically are able to view all your cameras, kind of at the same resolution, at the same frame rate, but at 10 times lower bandwidth consumption and storage consumption on your mobile phones, right? So you can just download Blue, kind of mobile app from App Store and Play Store, and, kind of just start seeing your videos, right? So you can just select a site, and, select the cameras that you want to see, and you can start seeing videos, or you can, go back and, kind of see historical videos. That's step one. Step two is, kind of you basically configure what is it that you actually want. And I keep, kind of using the word configure and not build, because essentially you just configure. You tell the system, okay, here are the SOPs that, kind of that we have. These are the things I really need to monitor. Kind of that's the second thing that actually happens. You basically define everything that you need. Kind of what do you essentially, okay, now you go and get videos from all your sites. What do you need Blue to do for you, right? So, kind of that's basically, kind of step two of, kind of trying to tell the system, hey, you know what, these are the things that are important for me. For now, these are the things that I'm interested in. But at no point does that mean that these are the only things that I will ever look at, right? So tomorrow you have a new SOP, you go and add that. Kind of you have an SOP in South India as compared to, different SOP in North India. Absolutely fine. You just go to specific set of sites and have a different SOP as compared to other sites. So, kind of even, kind of SOPs during day and nights, and we have customers that, kind of have different SOPs during different points, different times, and different shifts. That's also fine, right? So it's basically just communicate with your system. The Once you've done that, kind of the next chunk of video that's going to come from your site is going to be analyzed, and it's going to start giving you, if you want alert, it'll give you alerts. If you want dashboards, kind of there are predefined dashboards that they have. You have push notifications, you have WhatsApp notifications. You basically kind of have someone essentially monitoring all these sites for you, kind of 24/7, giving you all the relevant information. And what we've done is, kind of we've tried to keep the system quite fluid, kind of in the sense that we do not really, kind of work with, kind of while we have predefined dashboards. So, hopefully I can show you some of them. But we do not, we believe that, kind of different users have different requirements in terms of what they actually want to see. So we kept it like ChatGPT, right? So it's sort of a more interactive, kind of information. So you interact with your site, you interact with your videos, you ask information that you are basically, kind of going to look for. There's someone basically, kind of that is going to be able to access the videos, get the information for you, kind of. Another example, kind of sometimes can be scary, but quick service restaurants, kind of one of them had a rodent infestation, and it's basically, kind of you would not kind of plan for things like that. But can you search for those in your videos? Ask which all sites have kind of sighting of rodents in the last 7 days, and it'll basically get you videos, evidences, and tell you these are the sites that actually had a rodent infestation. Perfect, my problem solved, at that point of time. The upside, tremendous, kind of both for the customers and the brand. And what did it take? Nothing, just kind of one damn simple question that was basically asked at that point in time. So that's basically how Blue works. Kind of we are kind of from the kind of deployment that we have. We typically are able to do like 350 sites, kind of in a month. And that's based on the experience that we have right now, and kind of availability of some of these edge devices. It kind of that's the speed and the rate at which we can potentially deploy. So if you've got 1,000 site store, kind we would potentially take about 3 months to get all of your sites onboarded on Blue. So, kind of just a quick recap on, kind of essentially the key takeaways that you would potentially have. The first one is kind of potentially something that I believe we are the only organization in the whole world that actually, kind of can do an AI-based video compression without changes in frame rate or resolution. Kind of, so you can aggregate your videos. You have, kind of once you've aggregated your videos, an agent ecosystem that actually, kind of gets you the right information, helps you protect pilferage, ensure customer experience. You can search and interact with your videos, kind of in natural language. Kind of there's no programming involved. You get alerts real time. The ones that kind of you actually want real time, you get real time. You can configure it, and then kind of obviously there are pre-configured dashboards and reports that come to you, kind of as and when you configure it. Let's just take a quick example of kind of what it
First
basically
up,
looks like.
click the eye icon to toggle camera feed visibility on or off. Then, click the Back to All Cameras button to return to the camera list. Afterwards, toggle the compress switch to optimize stores footfall metrics and traffic
essentially
data.
This is how
From here,
you would potentially
click
ask
Expand Chat
questions.
to view the full conversation with the AI assistant.
And kind of when you ask questions, you get answers, and you also get specific evidences.
After that, click the play button to watch the video of the takeaway order.
Kind of it might have actually happened. So kind of, I mean, you don't really need to look at any of your videos. Kind of you've basically been able to monetize your videos, get real input, real kind of advantages coming out of your videos. This is this is how Blue essentially kind of works. So kind of with for the kind of for the end customers.
First up.
So.
First up.
So kind of if kind of Blue, the concept of Blue and the concept of semantic video data lake, kind of seems interesting enough. I guess the steps are simple. Kind of you use one of the devices that we have, connect your cameras. Kind of help the system understand, train it. Not kind of when I say train it, it doesn't mean the conventional kind of AI training with hundreds of GPUs. What it means is let it know what your SOPs are, kind of how things kind of intend to work for you. And kind of once you've done that, the next one is kind of get your data and figure out how to kind of how to utilize that information to kind of make your processes better, to kind of identify stores that are struggling and kind of provide any sort of help that you can actually kind of provide to your system, to kind of to those stores to actually kind of make things better. So it's more like kind of somebody is just kind of disseminated the ground reality, has analyzed the ground reality across all your sites, and has given you, kind of simple tidbits of, kind of information that are actionable, kind of, and kind of it doesn't stop at that. It also tells you what to do, right? So, kind of basically it's its own assessment of the next best action, NBA. It's its own assessment of the next best action. Kind of it essentially tells you, kind of what can actually be done after that. So, so that's basically, kind of what Blue actually does for you. We have been fortunate enough to be, kind of to be trusted by some of the largest global and Indian brands, where we've had, kind of the experience of, giving them a real ROI in terms of customer experience, in terms of reducing pilferage. We have several, kind of known instances of pilferage that we have identified. Unfortunately, for security reasons, I cannot share those with you. But kind of I mean, as and when needed, happy to kind of get on a one-to-one meeting and discuss more details about how and what can actually be done to kind of to make your stores run better using AI. I'll take a pause here and kind of there are potentially other technical details that kind of I might want to go to, but let's take a pause here and see if there are any questions that I or if anybody from my team can actually answer.
Yeah, the questions is already answered by
Oh.
your team in Q&A box and in chat box.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's great.
So, but here means as the PPT is over, so I would request you if you can share one or two practical example where the implementation of this services can be helpful for the industry, means how they can means identify and what kind of impact they can create in their business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Rajat. So, kind of, I'll potentially take two specific examples. So, kind of where kind of the implementation of Blue has actually kind of helped our customers very significantly. The first one is a very popular, fast food chain. Kind of India's one of the most beloved brands with kind of It is, and we have our solution deployed at about 110 of those restaurants. So basically, they run restaurants, kind of across the country, actually globally now. And we have the solution deployed at about 110 of those stores. So they had a very kind of peculiar problem, kind of, and the problem was essentially uh, the the point of sale system and the cash till that's out there. I mean, essentially numbers did not match. Kind of towards the end of the day. Kind of you can do audits, but kind of there were several of those stores where numbers did not match. Kind of it was about 10%, 9 to 10%, kind of gap that they were actually seeing across kind of across the stores. One of the things, kind of, and I mean, they did, kind of, they had CCTV cameras, they had access to their footages, and, kind of, they had people actually looking at the footages, and they were able to identify scenarios. It's not like they were not able to identify those scenarios, but kind of that actually happens in, that theft happens in 10 seconds. And for that, you have to, kind of watch footage of 12 hours of store operation. It is impossible for human beings to be able to do that, right? So, kind of even for just one store, kind of if you have to do it, it's impossible. Think about, kind of hundreds of stores that are out there, and it becomes almost impossible for somebody to do that. Where we actually came in was, kind of, all right, kind of you have scenarios that you've noticed. Why are you watching the videos? Let us, kind of just tell the things to our system that you are actually looking for. Are you looking for cash being taken out of the till? Are you looking for the cash being handed over to somebody else? Are you looking for, kind of wrong QR code being presented or payment being taken on, kind of a mobile phone as compared to, kind of the standard QR code? You are looking for these 10, 20 things, right? Kind of just tell the system that these are the 10, 20 things that you're going to be looking at. And it was pretty much that, kind of, I think the results were to some extent miraculous, Akshat. And, everybody was out here. Uh, it was, kind of, and it was true. Kind of, there were several instances of pilferage that were actually happening. And we were able to, kind of identify, give them 30, I mean, you cannot just say that there is a pilferage happening without evidence. Right. So we also, kind of extracted 1 minute worth of videos corresponding to those pilferages and bam, one report, right? So, can you just basically have one report, all pilferages with 1 minute, kind of video that has happened over the last 7 days or so, right? So there are basically two outcomes. You obviously are able to identify pilferages. The second thing is, as, as human beings, our psychology also, kind of acts, kind of in a manner where, kind of when you know that there is a mechanism of identifying these gaps, the thefts and pilferages, you will potentially, kind of try not to do that. Kind of, and it is true that, kind of pilferages have actually happened even after that, but drastically lower in numbers, right? So, kind of those, and kind of we basically created a very happy operations manager at the customer side, and kind of that's been kind of really significant and kind of groundbreaking for us, for the customers also. I'll take another example, and this one is kind of it's again a global brand, kind of one of the largest kind of burger manufacturing or kind of burger fast food joints that's out there. And this is not just their problem. This is a problem that pretty much every quick service restaurant actually has it. It's the delivery, right? So, kind of dine-ins and delivery. These are two, kind of mechanisms how essentially customers, kind of come to the store and, interact with the store. Delivery happens through primarily two platforms, Swiggy and Zomato. And and kind of you notice there's several instances when you've ordered something and something else comes, right? So the bill and kind of what's actually been packed does not match. When it does not match, obviously Zomato or Swiggy refunds you, but the penalty is actually borne to a large extent by the restaurant, right? So who've actually kind of misplaced or packed the items incorrectly. Uh, Blue here, kind of has a very simple solution. It is basically looking at the packing. It's trying to identify the SKU. If it is able to, it's not able to match either the quantity, right? So if you've asked for 2 burgers and, the bill says there are 2 burgers and there's only 1 burger that's going in, it will basically, it'll flag that. And if it is flagged, you're not allowed to hand it over to the delivery person, right? So you basically nip it in the bud. You don't really have that problem of misplaced items anywhere. Again, this it's still early days right now, but absolutely going to create a lot of lot of value in terms of return of interest. And finally, I think the value that we are creating in terms of hygiene and safety compliance. I think all of us are kind of very thankful for it because ultimately we are consumers of those chains also, and it basically ensures that even minute issues that basically might have been there are taken care of. So, Akshat, at a high level, these are kind of potentially 3 things that I wanted to highlight, and I'm just focusing specifically on the franchisee sort of scenarios, because our solution goes beyond that, right? So, franchisee is one of the verticals that we actually work with, but we're very strongly placed in manufacturing, in other forms of warehousing and other places also. But I'm just focusing on some of the use cases that we have on the franchisees, QSRs, etc.
So, sir, means as this session is open for all, not for the franchisee only, because means our focus area is franchisee only, and our member base mostly from the franchisee sector.
Right.
But we have a mix of the crowd. Some big MNCs and other players are also joining this session. So, if you can elaborate, means in which sector, means which type of companies you are providing the solution and they can benefited by your services. You can just give an overview about your overall services to them.
Sure. So, one of one of the sectors that we actively work on is essentially the security and surveillance industry. And security and surveillance industry, we work with a fuel farm near to an airport. It's in Mumbai airport essentially, and I mean. Unlike conventional video analytics, I mean, we never say that we do video analytics because we do not, right? So it's more, it's basically understanding of the context of, essentially what is happening. We are able to provide, a more detailed and, I would say, pertinent sort of information. So, the fuel farm facility that I'm, essentially talking about, it has, basically a concept of VIP movement, right? So, essentially when home ministers or prime ministers actually, are going, it's just adjacent to the airport and it has access to the airfield, right? So there are sort of several protocols that are supposed to be followed when there's VIP movement happening at the airport. And these protocols actually differ and they change over a period of time, right? So it's I mean, handling such things, it's almost impossible. You can't really change rules in AI systems every day. But the fact that we are able to define things in English, it basically allows us to change those rules. Okay, kind of we've basically been able to provide a mechanism of saying, okay, VIP movement is happening. These are the protocols, and these protocols are essentially, kind of defined by CISF and others. You can basically have, okay, this is the protocol in process. If there are, I mean, this is not being followed, kind of you can basically, kind of raise an alert that, and alert, kind of people at the site. I mean, certain gates are supposed to be closed. Access to certain area is supposed to be, kind of closed when VIP movement actually happens. So that's another one, Akshat, kind of on the, kind of on the security side of it, that, kind of where we played a key role. So.
Okay, so here only one question from my side. Is your entire feed is available in English only, or it's available in regional language also?
It is, kind of it is available in all languages.
In all languages, because in most of the south side we get the feedback that if we are going into the means interior area of the city, then the people are very mostly comfortable in the regional languages, so they want to adopt the technology who can provide all type of language solution or
We have definitely tested in few languages, kind of, theoretically it should work in others also, but we have not tested extensively in all the languages so far. But English, Hindi, and probably I think we've, kind of also tested in Gujarati, kind of these are the languages that actually work fine.
So means from we are waiting for 1 or 2 minutes more for further questions, because your team is very actively answering all the question in Q&A box and the chat box,
Sure.
and people are very asking questions, and it's a very means you productive session. If the audience is interacting with the speaker and they have the query, it means it's a very good presentation from the speaker side, as well as the audience is also a very keen to take up adopt this services or the technology in their system. So we are just waiting for 1 or 2 minutes. If anyone is left to ask their query, please ask in Q&A box or chat box. We prefer in Q&A box because we don't have the audio facility in our webinar to ask question through audio. So please type your question. We get the response from Miss Farhana Sheikh. She will say ki she will connect for the demo with your team. And I just want to inform to all the participants that post webinar we means on tomorrow we will share the presentation with all the participants along with the brochure of the company and the contact person detail in our through the mail to all of you, so that you can easily reach out to them for demo or other query. Okay, Kunalji, thank you very much for your detailed presentation, and it's a very means very much interactive and uh, enlightenment full session for the audience and for me as well, because I'm not a tech savvy too much, but it's a very useful for me, and I'm very much sure from when we uploaded this session on our website and means put the clips of this session on our media social media handles, we definitely get a good sharing the good knowledge with our audience, so they will be the benefited by them also. So thank you very much audience to joining us today, and we will update you for about our next session soon. Thank you, Kunalji. Thank you, Team
Thanks,
Blue,
Akshay. Thanks,
for your
everyone.
actively
Appreciate it.
participation. Thank you.